Okay, this is going to be lesson number 6 for ninth grade. Okay, this topic you can find it on your books on page 36. Okay, we're going to continue with factoring. Okay, on the first lesson of this topic, we covered how do we factor to find the values for x that are going to make this equation into true. Okay, now the second way to solve these type of equations is the quadratic formula. Okay, the quadratic formula, we have it on the top in green. Okay, it says that x is equal to negative b plus minus the square root of b to the square minus 4ac, all of this divided by 2a. Okay, now how do we find these values? Okay, you have to remember that when we have these type of equations, okay, quadratic equations, we have a term with a variable that's elevated to the square, like this one. Okay, we have a linear term, which is x to the 1, and then we have a constant, which is going to be a value that's going to be by itself. Okay, so when we're talking about the quadratic formula, this is how we take the values. Okay, where do we find b? B is the constant that's next to the linear term. Okay, so we have negative b is going to be the number next to the x. Okay, then plus negative, that's going to give us two values, one with the plus, one with the negative. Okay, that's how we get the two values. Okay, and then inside the square root we have b to the square, which is the same term, okay, of the linear term, and then we have minus 4 times a times c. A would be the term next to the quadratic, okay, and then c is the value that's left alone, and then on the bottom is 2 times a, which would be the first term. Okay, so when we solve for these equations, we just need to substitute. Okay, let's do number 1. Okay, so we have x to the square minus 6x plus 5 is equal to 0. Okay, so we need to put these values into the quadratic formula. Okay, so we have that x is equal to negative b. B is already negative, so that means that we have to put it as negative. Okay, so it's going to be minus 6. Okay, then we have plus minus following the formula. Okay, then we have the square root of b to the square, which is going to be negative 6 to the square minus 4, okay, times a, which is 1, times c, which is 5. Okay, and all of this inside the square root. Okay, and all of this divided by 2 times a, which is the first term, going to be times 1. Okay, so let's start solving. Negative times negative is going to be positive, so we have 6 plus minus. Okay, inside the square root we have negative 6 to the square. That means negative 6 times negative 6 is going to be positive, and it's going to be 36. Okay, then we have minus 4 times 1 times 5. Okay, so that means that 4 times 1, 4, times 5, 20. And all of this divided by 2, because 2 times 1, 2. Okay, let's continue to solve. Okay, so we have 6 plus minus, and then we have 36 minus 20. It's going to be the square root of 16. All of this divided by 2. And if we simplify one step further, we have 6 minus plus 4 divided by 2. Okay, so when we have this answer like this, plus minus 4 divided by 2, that means that we're going to have two answers. Let's put it x1 and x2. Okay, so 1 is going to be, in the quadratic formula we have plus and minus. Okay, so one of the answers is going to be plus and the other one is going to be minus. Okay, so that means that we have 6 plus 4 divided by 2. And the other one is 6 minus 2, minus 4 divided by 2. Okay, where do we get these two? Remember, the quadratic formula has plus minus, and we haven't solved it. Look, we're carrying plus minus until we get to this point where we can actually solve. Okay, so this means that we have 6 plus 4 is 10 divided by 2. So the first value of x is 5. Okay, and the second value of x, 6 minus 4 is 2. 2 divided by 2, 1. Okay, and this is our answer. Okay, so this is how we solve for this equation. Okay, and how do we know that it's true? Let's solve. Let's take number 1 because it's easier. Let's bring it here. 1 to the square, 1. Minus 6 times 1, 6. So 1 minus 6 minus 5 plus 5, 0. Okay, so that's how we know that our answer is correct. Okay, we're taking the value of x, we put it into the original equation, and the answer is 0. Okay, so as a review, where do we get two answers? Remember, plus and minus that come from the quadratic formula. And how do we solve for the quadratic formula? We need to put the terms inside the equation into the formula. Okay, and remember, these are the values that are outside of the variable. Okay, the terms, the constants. Okay, perfect. This is number 1. Let's do number 2. Okay, when you think about it, it's not that hard. The only thing is that we need to be careful with the negative signs and the positive signs. Okay, let's do number 2. X to the square minus 7x plus 12 equals to 0. Okay, so we're going to take these terms and we're going to put it into the quadratic formula. So which is B? The one in the middle. Okay, the one that's next to the linear term. Okay, so we have minus 7, and it's negative, so that means that we need to convert it. Then we have plus, minus, b to the square, negative 7 to the square, okay, then minus 4, okay, times a, which is 1, times c, which is 12. And then 2 times a is going to be this number, which is 1. Okay, so let's put it into the quadratic formula. So we have minus 7, okay, plus minus, okay, remember that this is what gives us the two answers, and then we have square root, this one to the square, because this one is b, times 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is 12. And all of this is inside the square root, okay? And all of this divided by 2 times a, sorry, which is 1. Okay, so this is where we get x. Okay, so let's start solving. Negative times negative, positive. Okay, so we have 7 plus minus. Okay, and then we have 7 to the square, negative 7 to the square, 49. It stays positive. Minus 4 times 1, 4. Times 12, 48. Okay? And then we have divided by 2. Okay? Then we continue to solve. So we have 7 plus minus 49 minus 48, 1. So we have the square root of 1 divided by 2. Okay, so let's take our two answers, x1 and x2. Because the square root of 1 is 1. Okay, so we have 7 plus 1 divided by 2, and we have 7 minus 1 divided by 2. This one is 8 divided by 2, so this one is 4. Okay, and 7 minus 1 is 6 divided by 2. This one is equal to 3. Okay, so this is our answer. Where do we find these answers? Remember, x1 and x2 come from plus and minus. Okay, so that means that we're going to have two answers. Okay, and let's check. Let's bring 3 to the original equation. So we have 3 to the square, 9. 7 times 3, 21. Okay, so 9 minus 21 is negative 12. Plus 12 equals to 0. Okay, so this is how we know that our answer is correct. Okay? Perfect. Let's do number 3. Okay, so number 3 says 6x squared minus x minus 1 equals to 0. Okay, so we're going to take the terms, we're going to put it into the quadratic formula. So let's start. Okay, which is b? Negative 1. So we have negative 1 times negative plus minus. Then we have the square root of 1 to the square minus 1 to the square, sorry. Okay, minus 4 times a times negative 1. Okay, and remember, inside a square root, we cannot have a negative number. Okay, and 2a is 2 times 6. Okay, so let's continue to solve. Okay, here we have 1 plus minus, then we have inside the square root is 1 to the square 1, but look at this negative. This negative is going to clash with this one and it's going to be positive. So 4 times 6, 24, plus 1, 25. Sorry, 24. Okay, and then we have divided by 12. Okay, so that means that we have 1 plus minus 25, which is 5, divided by 12. Okay, and we have our two answers, x1, x2. Okay, so on x1, we have 1 plus 5 divided by 12. And x2 is 1 minus 5, okay, divided by 12. Okay, so this is going to be 6 divided by 12. And if we simplify, divided by 6, this means that it's 1/2. And here we have minus 4 divided by 12. This can be simplified into 1/3, but negative. Okay, and that's how we find our answers. Okay, let's review. We have the equation. We have the term 6, which is a, minus 1, which is b, and minus 1, which is c. So we take these terms and we put it into the quadratic equation. Okay, minus b, minus 1, but we have a negative term, so they need to multiply. Plus minus negative 1, which is b, to the square, it becomes 1 positive, minus 4 times a, which is now 6, and minus 1. Okay, so this negative clashes with this one and it becomes positive. And 4 times 6 times 1 equals 24. When we add it with 1, it's 25. Okay, and the square root of 25 is 5. Okay, and then we have the two terms, 1 plus this divided by this, and 1 minus this divided by this. And that's where we get our two answers. Okay, so make sure to check the link under this video. You'll find some exercises that you need to do. Okay, and if you have any questions, let me know. Okay, on the next lesson, we're going to cover the next way of solving these equations, which is completing the square. Okay, so thank you very much.